Complete insight map, same as ever. Morgan Housel, author of The Psychology of Money, examines the things that never change. While the world chases predictions, Housel argues the real edge comes from understanding timeless human behaviors: greed, fear, storytelling, patience, adaptation. Patterns identical for thousands of years. 23 interconnected essays. 1 thesis. Stop predicting the future. Start studying what has always been true. PHAs 1. The Futility of Prediction. Housel opens by challenging our obsession with forecasting. The most consequential events were never predicted. The correct response is preparation, not prediction. The biggest events are always surprises. Trigger: no one predicted. COVID-19, 9/11, the 2008 crisis, the fall of the Soviet Union, or the rise of the Internet. If every major event was a surprise, why do we keep trying to predict the next one? Realization: the most important events break all existing models. The bigger the event, the less predictable it was. This is a feature of complex systems, not a bug in our methods. Conclusion: stop predicting specific events. Prepare for categories that always recur: pandemics, crises, wars, disruptions. The biggest news stories of the next 10 years will be things nobody is talking about today. History is lived forward but understood. Backward: trigger. Historians create neat narratives making the past look inevitable. First-person accounts from those events reveal confusion, uncertainty, and chaos. People living through the Great Depression didn't know it was the Great Depression. Realization: the past felt exactly as chaotic to those living through it as our future feels to us. History is accidents and coincidences that only look clean in retrospect. Conclusion: use history not to predict, but to understand how people react to uncertainty. Because that reaction never changes. History is the study of change, ironically used as a map of the future. Risk is what you don't see. Trigger. Every financial crisis was, by definition, something the market didn't price in. If everyone saw it coming, it wouldn't have been a crisis. Realization: true risk is invisible. If you can identify and plan for it, it's a known cost, not risk. The feeling of safety is itself a risk factor. It means risks are being ignored. Conclusion: the response to risk is not better prediction but resilience, systems that absorb unforeseen shocks. The biggest risk is always what no one sees coming. Hanging by a thread. Trigger. A tiny variation in Earth's tilt triggered an ice age. A wrong turn in Sarajevo altered the 20th century. A butterfly ballot in Florida 2000 changed a presidency. Realization: massive events are routinely triggered by tiny causes. This is the default mode of complex systems: small inputs, enormous outputs. Conclusion: the world is far more fragile than it appears. A stable system may be one perturbation away from a radically different state. The biggest events in history were caused by things so small they make you question whether there's any point in planning. PHAC2, the Perman. Features of Human Nature. What is predictable human nature? The psychological tendencies documented for millennia remain unchanged despite all progress. Greed and fear. Run on ancient hardware. Trigger. Dutch tulips 1637, South Sea 1720.com, housing, crypto, identical cycle, every time, euphoria, overconfidence, leverage, overconfidence, crash, despair. Always. This time is different. Never is. Realization: we run 21st century markets on Stone Age brains. Evolution optimized us for survival on the savannah, not rational behavior in global economies. We're not smarter than our ancestors, just faster. Conclusion: when this time is different, gains momentum, it isn't. The packaging changes, the behavioral loop does not. People who think they've outsmarted greed and fear because they read a book about it are the most susceptible to both. The expectation treadmill, trigger. People earn 10x more and feel no happier. Lottery winners report lower satisfaction within years. Countries doubling GDP don't double happiness. Realization, happiness reality minus expectations. As reality improves, expectations rise faster. This is hedonic adaptation, a built-in feature, not a bug. The person earning 80K expecting 70K is happier than the one earning 500K expecting 600K. Conclusion: managing expectations is more powerful than increasing income. The most impactful financial decision is wanting less. The world isn't driven by greed. It's driven by envy. Charlie Munger, people want to hear what they already believe, trigger. Virality correlates with confirmation of existing beliefs, not novelty or truth. Commentators who validate audiences build massive followings regardless of accuracy. Realization, challenging beliefs triggers cognitive dissonance, discomfort. Confirming beliefs triggers dopamine, pleasure. We're wired to mistake agreement for insight. This is why echo chambers form spontaneously, and changing deeply held beliefs through confrontation is nearly impossible. Conclusion: to persuade, start from what people already believe and build outward. Frontal assaults on beliefs trigger the backfire effect. Tell people what they want to hear, and you can be wrong indefinitely. Tell them what they don't want to hear, and you'd better be right the first time. Wild minds. Genius and madness. Our neighbors, trigger, Musk, Jobs, Rockefeller, Hughes. The traits driving extraordinary achievements also produced extraordinary dysfunction. Relentless drive doesn't have an off switch. Realization: you can't extract the good parts of an extreme personality. The traits producing outlier success and outlier dysfunction are a package deal. Genius and madness are neighbors on the same spectrum. Conclusion: when you idolize someone's success, ask, would you accept the full package, including the parts that don't make the highlight reel? People who think about the world in unique ways you like almost certainly also think about it in unique ways you won't like. Burr. Burr. Purr. The best story wins. Trigger: conspiracy theories persist despite counter-evidence. A single anecdote defeats a mountain of statistics. Darwin and Einstein succeeded partly because they told better stories than predecessors. Realization: the brain is a narrative machine, not a calculator. In every domain, the person with the best story wins, regardless of whether it's the most accurate. Conclusion: master storytelling. Present data within narrative frameworks. The most important skill in any field is explaining what you do in a way that connects with emotion. No one is impressed by a number. Everyone is moved by a story. The illusion of explanatory depth. Trigger: research shows people vastly overestimate their understanding of how things work. Toilets, economies, markets. Asked to explain step by step, they collapse. Realization: we live in permanent false understanding. This makes us overconfident in predictions and plans. Even experts are constantly surprised, yet average people believe they have a working model of the global economy. Conclusion: if you feel certain about a prediction, that certainty is a red flag. People who think they know how the economy works are just people who can't see how complicated it actually is. Hindsight. is not 2020 trigger. After every crash, people construct neat narratives explaining why it was obvious. None of those narratives existed before the crash. Realization: we can't tolerate randomness, so we retroactively construct causal stories for unpredictable events. This makes us overconfident we'll spot the next one. The cleaner the post hoc story, the more misleading it probably is. Conclusion: the real lesson from most historical events: nobody saw it coming, and the same will be true next time. Hindsight is not 2020. It's a fairy tale that makes us feel smarter than we are. Mark quote. 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 Mark quote. Mark quote. And the role of chance. The enormous, systematically underestimated role of randomness in every outcome. Luck and risk are siblings. Trigger. Bill Gates attended one of the only U.S. high schools with a computer in 1968. His equally talented classmate, Kent Evans, died in a mountaineering accident before graduation. Same talent, same ambition, radically different outcomes. Realization, luck, and risk are the same force, randomness, pointing in different directions. Effort is necessary, but not sufficient. The gap is filled by randomness. Conclusion: judge decisions by process quality, not outcomes. Good decisions can produce bad outcomes, bad luck, and vice versa. Luck and risk are both the reality that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than individual effort. The tail drives everything. Trigger. In VC, virtually all returns come from a tiny handful of massive winners. Most investments fail. Same pattern in art, music, science. A few works define entire careers. Realization: a tiny number of events produce almost all results. You can be wrong most of the time and still succeed spectacularly if you stay in the game long enough for the tail event to find you. Conclusion: maximize at bats. Except most will fail. Stay in the game for the rare, massive success to carry everything. Long tails. The farthest ends of a distribution are the most powerful force in the world. Room for error is the most important margin, trigger, people, and companies that were right about a prediction went bankrupt before it came true. No margin of safety. Being right eventually but broke now equals being wrong. Realization: you need to survive long enough for the right direction to materialize. Conservative investors who survive outperform brilliant ones who occasionally blow up. Conclusion: build in more margin than you think you need. The cost of being overly cautious is almost always lower than the cost of being wrong. Room for error lets you endure a range of outcomes, and endurance lets you get the outcome you need. Number Fand. PHAC5. Compounding, patience, and time. The most powerful and most underestimated force in the universe. Compounding defies human intuition. Trigger: Warren Buffett accumulated 99.7% of his wealth after age 52. If he'd retired at 60 with the same returns, his net worth would be 99.9% less. Same skill, same returns, just less time. Realization: the brain thinks linearly, compounding works exponentially. Most people underestimate time and overestimate intelligence. Buffett's secret weapon isn't stock picking, it's 75 years of compounding. Conclusion: the most important financial skill is patience. Time beats intelligence. Good investing isn't about the highest returns. It's about pretty good returns you can stick with for the longest time. The overnight success. Delusion. Trigger. Amazon lost money for a decade. Angry Birds was Rovio's 50-second game. The Beatles played 1,200 plus shows before their first hit. Dyson built 5,127 prototypes. Realization, overnight success, is the visible tipping point of years of invisible compounding. Observers see the result without the process and conclude success is sudden. Conclusion: no visible results now says nothing about tomorrow. Compounding has a long fuse and a massive payload. All big things come from small beginnings. The danger of impatience. Trigger: long-term investors outperform short-term traders. Average investors underperform their own funds, buying high, selling low, interrupting compounding. Average holding period dropped from 8 years to under 6 months. Realization: impatience is the most expensive emotion. Every interruption of compounding resets the clock. The inability to sit still destroys more wealth than any bad decision. Conclusion: the willingness to do nothing for long periods is the greatest competitive advantage in a world of instant gratification. The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up and say, "I can do whatever I want today." Tiny and magnificent. Trigger: reading 20 pages a day. 30 books a year, 300 books a decade. Saving 100 lane month at 8% $250K in 30 years. Insignificant daily inputs, transformative decade. Realization: we overvalue dramatic actions and undervalue small consistent ones. The magic isn't in any individual action, it's in relentless accumulation. Conclusion: start the smallest version. The size of the input matters far less than duration and consistency. The gap between tiny and magnificent is just time. Phase 6. Incentives, adaptation, and systemic change. The invisible forces driving behavior and why every solution creates the next problem. Incentives. The most powerful force in the world trigger brilliant, moral people commit financial fraud, hide drug side effects, sign off on fraudulent accounts. All perfectly rational given their incentive structures. Realization: people respond to incentives with mechanical reliability. Not to values, education, or intelligence. To incentives. Misaligned incentives make good people produce bad outcomes. Aligned incentives make mediocre people produce good outcomes. Conclusion: never attribute to stupidity what can be explained by incentives. To change behavior, redesign the incentive structure. Show me the incentive, and I'll show you the outcome. Charlie Munger. Every solution creates the next problem. Trigger: antibiotics. W. Superbugs. Social media, C. Polarization. Cheap credit, CI. Fragility. Seatbelts, CI. Faster driving. Realization: permanent solutions don't exist in complex systems. Every intervention creates new failure modes. Adaptability beats optimization. Conclusion: don't be demoralized when things that worked stop working. The advantage is speed of adaptation, not quality of any single solution. Progress has an annoying habit of turning one problem into a different problem. Calm plants the seeds of crazy. Trigger: the Great Moderation. Before 2008, decades of stability convinced everyone risk was permanently reduced. More leverage, less cash, more exotic instruments. The longer the calm, the more catastrophic the eventual collapse. Realization: stability is destabilizing. Hyman Minsky. When things are calm, people reduce safety margins and take bigger bets. The safest feeling moments are often the most dangerous. Conclusion: be most cautious when everything seems safe. The best time to prepare for a crisis is when nobody thinks one is coming. The irony of good times is that they breed the very risks that end them. Too much, too soon, too fast, Trigger, lottery winners go bankrupt. Companies that scale too fast implode. Athletes earning millions in their 20s are broke by 40. Realization. Getting too much too quickly is worse than getting it gradually. The process of earning builds the skills to sustain. Skip the process. Arrive without the skills to stay. Conclusion. The journey. I is the preparation. Slow earned growth is more durable than fast, given growth. Getting rich quick and staying rich are completely different skills. Turnche. PHA 7, Difficulty, Trade, Off S, and the Coast of Success. Everything worth having comes with costs, and our inability to see them leads to disillusionment. It's supposed to be hard. Trigger. People underestimate how hard things are, hit inevitable difficulty, and conclude they chose wrong. The valley of disappointment. Between expected and actual progress. Realization. Difficulty is not an obstacle to success. It is the filter. If it were easy, everyone would do it, and the returns would disappear. The difficulty creates the value. Conclusion. Difficulty is the cost of admission, not evidence of failure. Everything worth pursuing comes with a price higher than it looks from outside. The price is the filter. Casualties of perfection. Trigger. Companies optimizing every process have no slack when things go wrong. Just-in-time manufacturing collapses when one supplier fails. Realization. Efficiency is the enemy of resilience. Every unit of redundancy removed is a buffer lost. Maximum efficiency requires everything to go right all the time, which never happens. Conclusion. Maintain deliberate inefficiency. Slacken your schedule, cash you don't need, capacity you're not using. This is what saves you. The most efficient systems are the most fragile, harder than it looks, and not as fun as it seems. Trigger. Social media shows highlight reels. People assume others' lives are easier and more enjoyable than their own. Realization. Everyone is fighting battles you can't see. Every life is harder than it looks and less fun than it seems. This asymmetry creates chronically unrealistic expectations. Conclusion. Stop comparing your behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel. Every job looks easy when you're not the one doing it. PHAS 8, ENUG, Simplicity, and the Foundations of a Good Life. What actually constitutes a good life? Patience, humility, margin of safety, simplicity work in everything. Knowing when enough is enough. Trigger, Rajat Gupta, worth 100M, committed insider trading for more. Lost everything, committed insider trading for more. Lost everything. Madoff was already wealthy before the fraud. The goalpost never stops moving on its own. Realization, the inability to say enough, is the most dangerous trait. No amount of money, status, or achievement automatically triggers the feeling. Enough is not a number, it's a decision. Conclusion. Define your enough before the world defines it for you. The person who knows what enough looks like has more than the person with more but no stopping point. There is no reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Trigger. Simple index funds beat complex hedge funds. Simple exercise beats elaborate biohacking. Simple business models beat multi-vertical enterprises. Almost every time, long-term, realization, simplicity wins because it's sustainable. Complex strategies have more failure points, need more maintenance, and depend on specific conditions. Simple strategies are robust because they don't. Conclusion. The ability to identify 2 to 3 things that matter and ignore everything else is the highest form of intelligence. Simplicity is the hallmark of truth. Complexity is the hallmark of what we wish were true. Optimism and pessimism are both essential. Trigger. Pessimists sound smart. Optimists sound naive. Yet all meaningful progress was driven by optimists. Pessimists identified problems. Optimists solved them. Realization. The correct worldview is both simultaneously. Short-term pessimism, things will go wrong. Plus, long-term optimism, humanity adapts and innovates, the most accurate and useful framework. Conclusion. Save like a pessimist. Invest like an optimist. Build systems surviving short-term catastrophe, positioned for long-term growth. Optimism sounds like a sales pitch. Pessimism sounds like someone trying to help you. That is the most dangerous asymmetry in the world. Wounds. Heal. Scars. Last. Trigger. People who lived through the Depression maintained extreme frugality for the rest of their lives, decades after prosperity returned. Realization. Painful experiences reshape mental models permanently. The wound heals. The scar remains. This is adaptive, preventing the same catastrophe. But scars shape behavior long after conditions change. Conclusion. Everyone carries invisible scars driving their behavior. Your risk tolerance and worldview were shaped by events you may not even consciously remember. Your personal experiences make up 0.001% of what's happened in the world, but 80% of how you think the world works. Experience cannot be taught. Trigger. Parents teach children about money. Lessons don't stick until the children experience hardship. .com survivors warned about crypto, ignored by a generation that hadn't lived through a bubble. Realization. Certain knowledge can only be acquired through experience. You can read about a 40% portfolio drop, but until you feel the nausea, you don't truly understand. Experiential and intellectual knowledge are stored differently in the brain. Conclusion. Some lessons only come the hard way. Be patient with those who haven't been there yet. Be humble about domains where you lack direct experience. Some lessons have to be experienced before they can be understood. Insight. Interconnections and hierarchy level 1. Foundational. Human behaviors never change. Randomness governs more than we admit. The future is unpredictable. Level 2. Operational. Compounding dominates. Simplicity beats complexity. Room for error is non-negotiable. Level 3. Management. Incentives drive behavior. Stories shape reality. Adaptation is continuous. Difficulty is the filter. Level 4. Strategic. Define enough. Hold dual mindset. Experience shapes perception permanently. Focus on what doesn't change. Key lessons for application. 1. Study what doesn't change. Timeless behaviors, incentives, fear, greed, storytelling, compounding. Beat trend chasing. 2. Build resilience, not predictions. Systems survive in a wide range of scenarios. Beat precise forecasts. 3. Respect compounding. Time. Pus. Consistency beats intelligence. Pus. Compounding. Never interrupt the process. 4. Manage expectations. Happiness reality minus expectations. Manage the denominator. 5. Embrace simplicity. Boring strategies you maintain. Beat brilliant ones you abandon. 6. Leave room for error. Survival is the prerequisite for success. 7. Separate process from outcomes. Good decisions can produce bad outcomes. Judge the reasoning. 8. Distrust. Clean narratives. The neater the explanation, the more it's probably hiding. 9. Know your enough. Define it before the world defines it for you. 10. Hold dual mindset. short-term pessimist, long-term optimist. 11. Watch incentives. They explain 90% of irrational behavior. 12. Stay in the game. Survival first, optimization second. 13. Accept experiential limits. Some wisdom only comes the hard way. 14. Expect difficulty. The price is the filter that creates the value.